This is an MS Views Now program provided by MS Views and News. It is supported by Sandoz and Sanofi. And our guest tonight is a disability attorney. Her name is Lisa Gonzalez-Goetz. She's been working with MS Views and News for, well, I think since the beginning. So she's been doing this for many, many years. Her practice is nationally based. They take care of patients all over the United States, regardless of where you're living. They can help you out. So let's listen to Lisa. She's going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to do Q&A. All right. So Lisa, let's get started, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you, everyone who's attending. I appreciate it. I normally do a program where I explain disability and explain the program and explain different things that you need to qualify for disability. But today I'm doing something different. I think that with the new administration, it's important to address changes that are happening with Social Security. Everybody knows there's a new administration in DC. This is not a political statement by any means, one way or another, but I do think everybody needs to be informed. Just today, earlier, if you look at the news, the Senate voted 53 to 47, and there's a man named, the last name is Bisagno, Bisagno, and he became the new commissioner of Social Security today. All I know of him was that he was one of the highest paid CEOs in the United States, and in 2017, he earned $17 million for that year. So the hope is, according to the administration, that they will clean up the delays, systematize the program, make it more efficient. But it will affect everybody, whether you're receiving benefits, whether you're applying for benefits, or even me as an attorney representing people that are applying for benefits. There will be layoffs, there'll be more delays. So I put a slideshow together to kind of go through what we expect to happen, but really it's informational. And if anybody has suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them also. So these changes right now, according to government statistics, is going to result in the elimination of about 7,000 Social Security staff employees. That's a 12% workforce cut. There are many, many offices that are closing that are Social Security local district offices, mostly outside of Florida, but it's affecting everyone. What is that going to do to claimants? If you live in a rural place and you have an office that's closed, it's going to make it more difficult. And we'll talk about that at length, because I feel that it's a real disproportionate change and it's going to affect a lot of people. But for right now, just know that many offices are closing. This mandatory return to work in person was very interesting. I recently had a conversation with an administrative law judge and asked the judge what's happening behind the scenes. Are you guys going back to the office, not going back to the office? I understand there's 500 employees and only 50 desks. How's that going to work? Many judges are waiting to see what happens because they've gotten used to, since COVID, taking hearings over the phone in the comfort of their home. There's no driving, commuting, no getting dressed for work, because many of these hearings are not even in video. You're seeing more of me than you may see of your administrative law judge. But at any rate, what the answer was is there are no directives. Nobody knows. One judge in Fort Lauderdale took the package to retire when President Trump gave 2 weeks and they would give a buyout. And one judge in Fort Lauderdale took that and suddenly disappeared. That may happen more and more if the mandatory return to work in person remains. Now, it's also important to know that Social Security, many of these judges and employees were actually able to work from home 2 days a week before COVID. So it is changing for them, but not as drastically as it did for most of the population who had to appear at work prior to COVID. Office overcrowding, that's what I mean by there's not enough desks, seats to handle the amount of employees that are designated for that office. So one of the suggestions that the administration has is just cut the staff and just put the people that have desks. We'll see how that goes, and I don't know if that's even possible. And we'll talk about the numbers. Bill, you can change the slide, please. These are policies that Social Security is changing. They're changing many different aspects of, right before the administration came in, during the fall of 2024, there were a lot of changes to the law of Social Security. So one major change was vocational. So Social Security used to consider your last 15 years of work, and currently they're only considering the last 5 years. So that created a whole change with vocational training. So those are legal changes that are affecting more than anything attorneys and claimants that are appearing before the government. But in Social Security, whether you're receiving benefits or not, right now they're requiring an in-person verification. And that's very difficult for people to get to the office, not to mention the wait times in the office to get help. But that's what currently they're requiring. They may change it. They may change it tomorrow, in 2 weeks, in 2 years. But for right now, we have to ask our clients to actually show up to their local district office. Paper checks. Some people do not have bank accounts that receive benefits. Most people are getting electronic deposit, but now it's mandatory. Everybody has to get electronic deposit. The phones in Social Security, if anybody has tried to call Social Security for the past 10 years, it takes forever. Now it's worse than ever. You could wait on hold for 40 minutes and then somebody can just pick up and hang up on you. And nobody, the professionals trying to help Social Security process these claims, has a backdoor line. So we call the same numbers, similar numbers that you do, with the exception that we may know a friend or two that can hopefully give us answers about what's happening to a particular case. These modifications are significant. Like I said, it depends on if you are receiving benefits, not receiving benefits, where you live, your actual impairment, whether you have difficulty getting in and out of the car, getting to a local district office, taking a number, waiting to be seen. And then once you get seen, they require a lot of documentation. So you have to go prepared, especially if you're prepared to wait, you want to be prepared with your paperwork in hand. Okay. So no, we're going back to the overpayment and clawback policies. Yeah. So clawback is almost like that machine that comes down and grabs things and just takes, you know, it's like a machine you play. My kids played with it. I think I played with it as a kid. That's my understanding of clawback. In the beginning of 2025, the minute this administration began, they issued a statement that anybody who had an overpayment was going to have to pay the overpayment back completely before they were allowed to continue benefits. So the current status, or the status before this, was always that if you had an overpayment, we can negotiate and pay you back 10% every month, but we still need the checks we're receiving to live off of, right? So when the administration came in January 2025 and said, we are going to change it. And if anybody owes money, they're not receiving any Social Security checks until we get paid first. That created a public uproar, and they decided instead of 100% of withholding, they revised it 4 months later, and they said, okay, we're going to let you appeal the overpayment. We're going to give you 90 days, and we're going to collect 50% of it now. So if your check is, $1,000 a month for easy math, and you have an overpayment, many times the overpayments are not your fault. They're the fault of the government, ergo an overpayment. But now you have to pay it back, and you actually don't even pay it back. They take it back. So that's a real issue that started one way in January. Then in April, they said, okay, we're going to cap it at 50%, and we'll see how that does, because it's very hard to think for anybody, let alone for people that are not working, that you're going to have 50% less income monthly to live on. So it's a problem. Okay, go ahead. The delays between 2025 and 2024. It's important to know that the delays in 2024 were substantially higher because of the effects in COVID. During COVID, I know that I had talked to this group before. A lot of Social Security employees had no accountability because they were working from home. They got to call the clients whenever they wanted. Many times they called from numbers that were unknown or that appeared as spam, unknown number, or it simply said a number, but you didn't know it was Social Security. So clients understandably are concerned about answering phone calls of people they don't know, and let alone answering security questions or questions about their personal life and personal impairments. That created a huge backlog. So the numbers are swayed because they already started high, but generally you can see in this chart the average number of days to just file a claim is 232 days, and that's nationwide. In Florida, it's longer. In some states, it's shorter, but that's an average. And I have the numbers for Florida because that happens to be where my office is and where we started the MS Views and News. But these are the nationwide numbers. So these you can take to the bank or not. Initial applications are taking now 232 days. In 2024, it was 225. Reconsiderations, when you appeal, they're taking 241 days. So that's up from 213. And then you can see the numbers start climbing, right? When you get denied, and if you've had to go into a hearing to prove your disability, the hearings now, when you appeal, average another 285 days. And that's actually, that they say is going down, but again, it's dependent on the Office of Social Security. The processing time delays are expected to get worse as 7,000 employees are no longer on the job, with the hope and expectation that it will streamline it and eventually have faster processing times. So you can see here, and I've gone into depth with this in many other presentations, your application from start to finish will be at least 1.5 to 3 years. So that's why it's important, if you haven't applied and you think you want to apply, that you do it as soon as you stop working, that you get some advice and assistance, and that you have the support of your family, friends, neighbors, because it's going to be a long time with no income where you have to continue your medical treatment so that you can prove disability. Okay. These are the specific wait times in Florida. And anybody can Google this, or if anybody has questions, I'll be happy to answer them specifically to a specific office or a specific county or state. In Miami, the wait times right now are 8 months to get a hearing. In Fort Lauderdale, it's 6 months. So it's expected that Fort Lauderdale office, the Doge, will not make changes because that's one of the most productive offices. Orlando, it's 8 months, and in Tampa, it's 7 plus 1 month. So these are also a little bit skewed because a lot of this has to do with you may have a hearing scheduled and suddenly the judge is not there, like this happened. Now the person goes back to the waiting list to get a hearing with another judge. Sometimes they get postponed because a judge goes on vacation or something happens and it doesn't go through. So I would say that from start to finish, it's at least 9 months conservatively. If you have a hearing sooner than 9 months, and that's fantastic. Okay, go ahead. Okay, this is SSI. So as you know, there's several different programs for Social Security, but the major ones are Title II, which is SSDI, and Title 16, which is SSI. SSI, you have to prove that you're disabled. And then in addition, you have to prove that you meet the financial criteria, which is basically you've met the poverty line. That poverty line changes every year. So the caps were different in 2024. These are the new caps, individual and as a couple, which means if you have resources in excess of $2,000, and it could be $2,001, you will not qualify for SSI. Likewise, if you're married and your spouse brings in income, and as a couple you have more total resources of $3,000, you won't qualify. The exclusion tends to be, or is, you have to have a home, or you can have a home and still qualify for SSI. Your home can be worth $1 million, and because you have a right to own your home, they can't deny you SSI, but you can only have one. So many people have a home somewhere else, or as an investment, or as a plot of land, that will disqualify you. You have a home that you're renting out, that's income, that will disqualify you. And I would think that they're going to get a little harsher with this. The benefit reduction for in-kind support and maintenance, that's tricky, right? Because the monies that you have to be reimbursed upon the win of a case is currently $943 per month. But if you're receiving support or in-kind support, like I'm staying somewhere and I don't have to pay the rent, and the rent would normally be $2,000 a month, you don't qualify. Okay, so for all these reasons, it's interesting because you kind of think that, you know, I can claim this, and they don't really do investigations, but they are, and they're doing what they call, it's called a PERC review. I don't know what PERC stands for, but it's a PERC review. So the next slide is reviews and cessation risks. So let's say that you're currently on benefits, and should you be worried? Should you be concerned? You know, what's going to happen if I'm currently receiving benefits and I've been receiving for a year or for 10 years? Well, there's the goal of the administration is to do more frequent continuing disability reviews. So if anybody has had a CDR, you know what you have to do. We go through that a little bit. I touch upon it, but make sure that you have treatment. Make sure that you complain to your doctors. Make sure that you see a doctor on a consistent basis. whether it's once a month, once every 3 months, but don't get caught off guard because they will review. They used to only review people under age 50. I've seen them review people that are 62, 61. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. They're trying to deal with cases that are receiving benefits that shouldn't be receiving benefits, or benefit a person who got not an MS, because MS is a lifelong, debilitating illness. But if you had benefits because of, let's say, a diagnosis of cancer, a diagnosis of a heart problem, they gave you the benefits, you improved, but you're still receiving the benefits because you didn't go back to work and nobody checked. Now they're actually also saying, you know what, I think there's medical improvement. I think that we're going to cut your benefits. We're going to consider it a medical improvement unless you prove otherwise. So the advice I have is any paperwork that you get, respond immediately, submit all the updated medical records that you have, even if it's not just your neurologist, now it's a podiatrist, it doesn't matter. Psychologist, psychiatrist, everything you have, always have it handy so that when that cessation review comes, assuming it's coming in the next 4 years, you can hand it in right away. And if you have difficulty obtaining all these records, brain fog, memory problems, get help. Get help from a professional, get help from your family, but don't rely on Social Security. I wouldn't even say doing the right thing. I mean, they're looking to streamline the program. So if they can wiggle you out of the program, it's my belief they will. Okay. Okay. This is pretty much the reaction that we all have. There's no question that the government, and particularly Social Security, should be modernized. It should be more efficient, okay? They should obviously have fraud reduction. So these things that they want to instill can be very beneficial to community in general. One of the things that I had done, was look at the system of the computer system. It used to be archaic. It's improving, and now I think it's going to improve even more. So that's really, really great. The problem is what the critics say. These efficiencies, reduction of staff, closure of offices, are going to create more delays, so the numbers will probably go up. It creates barriers for people that live in rural places or have no computer or not savvy technologically. They're going to have a barrier to respond, to be efficient, to be quick, whether it's a cessation or an application. There are going to be delays and there are going to be difficulties completing the paperwork you need to, because right now, currently, it's still paper. And even though it's inefficient to have paper, and paper eventually gets scanned and gets electronically processed, they're going to do away with even handwriting. So that's an indication of unfairness. And then the digital divide is, like I said, people that don't have technological or the stick-to-itiveness. A lot of times the programs with Social Security to maintain your privacy have timeouts. So if you need more time to complete a report, it will probably shut you out, requiring you to start all over again. Additionally, if you speak to the Social Security employees, there is low morale currently. They have no idea if they're going to have a job. Some of the employees are pensioned out, so if they get told they have to go to work, they can just elect to take their pension. Some are very, very concerned whether or not they're going to have a a paycheck in a month, and it's creating very low morale. So people on the phones trying to find out what's happening. It used to be more like the clients would get nasty because they're waiting and they're stressed and really need the answers. And now you're getting nastiness on both sides. You're getting it from the clients on the one hand, and you're getting it from Social Security on the other hand. And both are understandable, but they're not acceptable methods of communication, but they do happen. Okay, go ahead. Okay, these are, if anybody's kept up with the news, this is what they think they're going to do. What they're saying may happen in the future is that Social Security benefits will not be taxable. Nothing has happened on that yet. Right now we have a new commissioner as of today, so we don't know what that's going to embark, but I'll keep you posted. And then concern about faster trust fund depletion if there's no offset. So for SSI people, if you have a trust fund, if you have a special needs trust, you're still able to collect, but there's a fear that people are, the more money they're losing, the less they're going to have. And that's a concern also for many, many people. Okay. Is that it? Is that the last one? Okay. So one of the Social Security personnel that worked directly with Dodge was quoted as saying in the Kansas City Star, May 4th, this organization is moving fast and breaking things, but they are trying to handle the staffing issues. Months, weeks, hours to have your phone call answered. And the effort is really done to eliminate the waste, but in the process, many people will be impacted. Okay, thank you. I hope this is informative.
What do people do? What can you tell people to do, or how to really prepare themselves financially for when they know they want to apply, and if they were not making a lot of money to begin with and they don't have a lot of savings to begin with, what happens to people like this? I mean, this is really terrible.
It is. It's terrible. What happens is they end up losing their home. Some people are living in cars. Some people are living with friends. You know, it's a pretty disastrous situation because in order to protect yourself, I would say you need as much support as you can from everybody around you to help you with transportation, food, medical bills, medicines. There's no answer. There's no easy answer. If you were to, the situation were different and you had a settlement of a car accident, a malpractice lawsuit, then there are ways that you can make special needs trusts and you can put the money so that it doesn't affect you. However, that's not the case for most people.
Right. Thank you for that. All right. Next, person wants to know if Social Security payments are taxable.
Okay, we talked about that. They are taxable. The new administration is hoping to take the taxation away, but it hasn't done anything yet in that respect other than talk about it.
Okay. Next, are Social Security payments based on your level of income?
It depends on the type of benefit. So the major two cases, SSDI and SSI. For SSDI, it's really based on how much money you earned and paid into the system. And then you're entitled to receive 100% of your retirement for purposes of disability. But for SSI, the numbers were there. They change every year a little bit. But yes, it's highly dependent on income and resources, not just on being able to be disabled, but in addition to that, you have to prove that you're financially destitute, pretty much.
Okay, thank you for that. Not good news, but thank you for answering. All right, next, the question is, there's so many here, that you did speak about the denial process. You did speak about people getting denied, and you spoke about how people should put through their paperwork, but I didn't hear you speak much about the need for people to seek out Social Security disability attorneys, that would be the best way for them to apply for this, as it is a better route for best results. Can you speak more about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I try to come on to this forum, not advertising, not trying to, plug it in for me.
In general, though.
But it is very, very important. Anytime a person tells you you have a right to legal representation, believe me, you should have it, because it means they have the power to take something away from you. If you do seek out an attorney that does Social Security disability, please ask them what percentage of your practice does Social Security disability, because, for example, we do 100% Social Security disability. That's what I've focused on for over 30 years. However, through the years and based on the economy, you see people go to somebody who's advertising for Social Security disability, and maybe their practice entails 10% or 2%, not enough. So make sure that if you find that you're applying, attorneys get paid the same amount, whether only if you win. If you lose, you don't have to pay anything. So there seems to be no offset, no reason not to find an attorney. If you're thinking of applying, not every attorney takes your case at the initial level. Some attorneys want to take it only when you're requesting a hearing. Some are looking at it as you're appealing, but we take it at the beginning because we feel we can flow the case a little better, make sure that the forms are always completed on time, make sure that you're not writing anything that will harm you, make sure that you're informative enough so that information is clear for Social Security, so that creates less questions. So if you think you're going to apply, you should find an attorney that only does Social Security disability. And you should find an attorney that can help you even with your initial application, because they'll be with you every step of the way.
Okay, thank you. All right, a lot of people are asking if you're available, and people are asking about different things to do with different states and if you're available to practice in those states. So if you could just answer about that. I know it was not supposed to be about Lisa, but the fact is that a lot of you online do need somebody that is qualified. This is a qualified person, which is why we have her online to speak with you.
I appreciate it. And my heart goes out to your group. So that's really why. So Social Security disability is a federal program. So I'm licensed in Florida and I'm licensed in Pennsylvania, but I have access to any state, including U.S. territories such as American Samoa, Guam. We represent people there. Some people leave the states to go back to their country because they have more support. They may still qualify for their disability, and we represent them at any stage. If we go in front of a judge and the judge denies us and the judge denied us making mistakes, then we appeal it to the Appeals Council. The Appeals Council oversees the judges, but for the last 8 years, they've rubber stamped the denial pretty much. So when you get denied at that stage, you have to be licensed to practice in the federal court in the circuit that you're in. So we practice in every circuit. I'm happy to say, or sad to say, but we have filed federal court complaints for clients in all 50 states. And then I'm going to do my last plug is in June. My husband David is my partner. He and I are both going to be admitted to the Supreme Court of the United States. So on our bucket list is hopefully to make law, to take a case that's so egregious that we can take it all the way up.
Okay, thank you. Interesting question that somebody just asked is, how do I set up a trust to store some money I have so it won't affect my benefits? Can I set up a social needs trust by myself? And where did it go? And not have to hire an attorney?
So special needs trust is a very delicate, difficult trust to make. There are attorneys that only specialize in special needs trusts. For example, I don't do them, and I know a lot about them. So I don't really suggest a layperson do a special needs trust. But if you're going to, what you need to know is that if you're going to get money and you're going to squirrel it away, you have to be careful. You have to be careful that you don't squirrel it away, and then they're going to say you're committing fraud. Did something happen?
No, I think somebody's phone went off.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Were you finished answering that?
Well, I just want to make sure that it's very clear. If you stash money away and they see that you did it just to be able to qualify for SSI, you are being fraudulent, and I don't know how severely this administration is going to follow up on that. But I'll give you an example. There was a child that was born blind because of a medical malpractice, got over $1 million in a settlement, medical settlement. They found out years later that they put all the money from the settlement in a special needs trust. However, they found out later on, and they went and opened a box in a bank account that had money in it. So now benefits are seized. Now all that money has to be paid back, and now you're going to get these clawbacks. So there's a lot of things that, yes, you have to be extremely careful.
Okay, thank you. Next, I had some good questions here and everything got bounced around somehow, but I'm trying to find them again. A person writes, can we draw normal Social Security while waiting for Social Security disability income to process? Let's say we can collect at 62, but FRA is 67, and at 65 we become disabled and can't wait until 67.
Yeah, I mean, so attorneys are really, we're starting to change the platform as the age of retirement is going up. But yes, you can collect early retirement while you're applying for benefits. It's what you would get if you win your case and prove disability, as opposed to the early retirement, will be 20% more money, and will speed you up for Medicare purposes, because you get Medicare after 29 months of being declared disabled. So we have many clients that are 62, but we have many that applied at 60 or 61, and then they turn 62 during the process. They start collecting 80% based on their early retirement. And then once you win your case, they divide it up based on 100% for the period of time you were receiving, and then 20% for the period of time that you were collecting. So yes, you can.
Okay, thanks. Next, with the resource cap on SSI, if you're married filing jointly, will only the individual limit come into play?
No. If you're married, it's not individual, it's couples. And every year it goes up. Let me see what the number was for this year, because it was, I had put it up, but no, once, and if you get married if you're receiving SSI and in the process of applying and appealing a disability case, and during the process you marry somebody that's receiving income, that's going to take you out of being eligible for disability. So at any time that you're doing this application, if you are married, spousal income is looked at. If you have disabled children, that's looked at. And if you start working, that's looked at. So money concerns are the most the Social Security focuses on. And for 2025, the limits again were 943 for an individual and 1,415 for a married couple. You could coexist, co-live, but once you're married,
Wow.
half that income is yours. Yeah.
Okay. I just lost my my feed, so I got to speak with you all in a minute, but I did see some of the questions and I'm going to ask them while I'm trying to get my laptop back working again. When you apply for Social Security disability income, can you live off the retirement funds that you've already have that you're living with?
Yeah, sure. When you have disability based on your own work history, your monies don't come into play unless you're earning it. If you have it, you're fine. It should not affect you.
Okay, thank you. Next, person writes, when should you ask for help from a Social Security lawyer?
Okay, so as I stated before, anytime I would suggest you have a lawyer for your application so that from the beginning of your claim onward for all those appeals, if you should have them, you know, you have somebody watching out for the statutes, the appeal statute, the 10-day letters, the appointments that you're going to have with consultative evaluators, anything Social Security says. If you want to give it a shot on your own, give it a shot on your own. But if you get denied, you really should seek the help of an attorney. It's not required, but it's certainly suggested. And I mean, I think it's silly not to, because if an attorney decides that they're taking your case, it's because they think they can win it. Nobody wants to work for free. If you lose a case, you don't get paid. If you win a case, we're capped now at $9,200 per case. It doesn't 25% or $9,200. We don't get more than that. So it makes sense to hire an attorney. You're not coming out of pocket for anything. And depending on your attorney, for example, we will pay for your medical records to obtain them in hopes of winning the case. So if somebody wants to support you and go behind you, I think you should take advantage of anybody. So yes, the help, advantage in terms of the help from anybody. So I think, yes, I think you should have an attorney at any stage, even at the beginning. If you're thinking about applying for disability, it's suggested that you get the advice of legal counsel. That only does Social Security. Don't go to your traffic attorney for a Social Security question, or your workers' comp doctor for a Social Security question, or your divorce attorney, or your estate planning. Go to an attorney that does only Social Security disability, and they should be able to give you the best answers.
Okay, thank you. Next person, you said that Social Security was looking at the last 15 years of work. Now they're only looking back at the last 5 years. Does that mean that they're basing your Social Security benefit only on the last 5 years of employment? That's
a great question. No, your Social Security amount is based on what you've paid into the system. What it's doing with employment and going back 5 years is that if you've worked in the last 5 years, they're jobs that are vocationally more relevant. So these are cases where when you go in front of the judge, you have a vocational specialist, you go against them and you really hone in on the job that you did. It used to be that people may have done a job 15 years ago, it doesn't exist anymore. 10 years ago, it doesn't exist anymore. So I believe it was either November or January, November 2024 or January 2025, where they said, no, we're not going to go back 10 years, we're going to go back 5 years from your date of disability, and we're going to consider any work you did in those 5 years as vocationally relevant, and you have to prove that you're not able to do any of those jobs that you did in the last 5 years and that you're not able to do any other work in the national economy.
Okay, thank you. Next, being fair to everybody that knows another disability attorney and those that know that there are different MS organizations that have disability attorneys that they recommend. Yes, you can contact any of the MS organizations and they will put you in touch with a Social Security disability attorney. I'm not saying that you need to call Lisa. What I'm just saying is that Lisa is a qualified attorney and there are plenty others out there as well. So, you know, it might be better for you to use somebody that's local to your region. So that way, if you have to make an office visit, you could at least do that rather than being on a Zoom call. Okay, so all right, next we got away from that one because that person was going to bash me, and then there were a few others that said things also.
Let me say something. I'm sorry, Stu. Let me interrupt. There are a lot of people that are in rural counties where finding legal representation for Social Security, since it's such a niche, is hard to do. So having the ability to find an attorney that has a really good win record and handles cases nationwide is a benefit. You're not paying more for that attorney, but you're able, the individual, by having the ability to go to the 50 states and territories, you're giving the individual a better representation, the access to representation, which they never used to have. So that's how I feel about that.
Okay, thank you. Next, if I'm approved to SSDI, can my husband collect as a spouse at the age of 62?
Yes, but you will collect the highest number. So it depends who is receiving. You can't double dip. You collect either under your account or his account, depending on who's the highest. And
Okay.
Social Security is very good at calculating that.
All right, good, thank you. Next, in short, SSDI is also financial needs based and not just based on level of disability? Question.
So it's important that you speak to somebody about that because Social Security has many programs and they have a program that's financial need based and there's a program that's based on your work and how you've put money into the system. So there's one program, SSDI, and there's another program, SSI, and they both require that you prove you're disabled, but the SSI further requires you to show that you're financially in need and you qualify for the financial guidelines.
Can you be on both SSI and SSDI?
Sure. Many people are on both. Many people, that's called, the lingo is SSDC. So let's say that you worked, but not enough to bring you above the poverty line, and your retirement is only $600, but the poverty line is saying $900, then you can collect your work money from what you paid in, and then SSI is actually called supplemental security income. It will supplement your Social Security income. So yes, you can be on both.
Okay. All right, lots of questions here, okay? I'm trying to get through them and weed out some of the ones that are similar to another one that was asked and answered.
Okay.
So this person writes, though, that she missed the beginning of the talk. And are you saying that your income is viewed for SSDI?
Yes.
Okay,
Past
next
income
one.
and current income. Mm-hmm.
All right, can you be a recipient of social services aid and still apply for SSDI while waiting for approval and payments?
Yes, a lot of the aid that you get in terms of social services are statewide programs, so it depends on the state or the county that you live in. But of course, you can be receiving those benefits as well as apply for disability. Yes, you can do both.
Okay, thank you. Next one says, you mentioned the resource limits with Social Security. If I'm approved for SSDI, do I have the same limits I ask because I have property that I inherited and I earned rental income from that property.
If you're receiving under your own account based on your work activity and you're receiving SSDI, not SSI, you will not be affected.
Thank you. Next. What can we do when there is paperwork delays due to the USPS delays, have received the paperwork in the mail 2 to 3 days before it's due?
I love it. I love it. This is something that's happening nonstop. So what you should do is the minute you get a paperwork and it's telling you it's a 10-day letter and it's postmarked and you see you just received it, call Social Security, the number on the bottom, and let them know you need an extension. They're very good about giving it, but there's also a Social Security portal that you can open under ssa.gov. And if you open that portal and you have a claim existing, you should be able to see what's happening in that case, in your case. And these letters, you could see them online before you get them from the postal office, but the postal office creates a humongous problem and in delays and in mail that is actually sometimes never received. So I hear you. I hear you. It's a big issue.
Thank you. Next one writes, I'm on Social Security. I'm 47 years old. I also work part-time. I know the cap is, in this person's case, $16.20 per month. Is it spread over the year or exactly per month?
So it's meant to be per month, but we average it out per year. I have always said in these programs that anytime you work and you're showing income, it creates a red flag, especially if you're under age 50. So keep those numbers low. Make sure that your employer knows you're not capable of working more hours. Many times you have absences, you arrive late, you have to show that you're not able to work. And once you start working, then the question becomes, well, maybe you can work a few more hours. So the number is not as important. If you go over it, you're out. If you go over it 1 or 2 months, and that was the only time you worked, then you do divide it by 12, and you see that it's still well below the number. And every attorney, everybody gives you different numbers. And I had a whole meeting with the office the other day that it's very important we all give consistent numbers. And even though it may be $1,600, $1,700 of work, I find personally that anything over $800 gets reviewed. So I've informed my entire staff to advise if you have to go back to work, make sure you make 800 or less.
There you go. All right. Next writes, if on Social Security disability and working part-time, but staying under monetary limit, any special advice on staying compliant with disability law?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing I said. First, make sure that you're still going to treatment, that your doctor will support the fact that you cannot work more. So you want to make sure if you're working 20 hours a week, that your doctor knows you're not capable of doing more. Make sure that your boss knows you're on disability and you're not going to always be the same consistent, because disabilities are not scheduled. You can't say I'm going to feel bad tomorrow, but today I'm working. So it does open the door, and I've found that as long as doctors say that you cannot work more than a certain amount of time, you're not consistent enough, you're okay. So if your ability to sit, stand, walk is a total of less than 8 hours in a day, then you can't work. But if you are able to, then it opens doors.
Okay. Point blank for many that are asking, must they stop working in order to put in Social Security disability application?
My first question to anybody who's trying to apply for disability is, have you applied? And the second question is, are you currently working? So anybody who's currently working, automatically I think, well, maybe they don't qualify. And then I have to ask the further question, how much are you working? How much are you making? And why do you believe that you can't do any work? So unless the law changes, yeah, you should be out of work when you're applying for disability. If you want to try to work, then that's where the amounts come into play. But if you're working and you apply, that application is going to be toast. They're not going to look at it.
Okay, next. I get SSI and didn't get enough years to be able to get more because of complications of MS. So how can I get more money? Is there a trust where I can, that's back to the store money, or I can go back to work? Will I ruin everything? And would it be harder to get the benefits I already have back?
So if you're receiving SSI, you're receiving probably the maximum. And if you don't have enough work quarters, unless you work and extend your quarter coverage, which is currently about $1,700 per quarter of earned income, I mean, those are traps. If you're on SSI, I think for the moment, just stay the course, because this administration, the first thing they're going to do is attack SSI because it's a welfare program. So I don't think it's time to monkey around with anything currently, especially if it's SSI. Look, they're reviewing people that worked all their life and paid money into the system. They're reviewing people that are over age 60. They're going to be reviewing SSI.
Okay, next. Should we assume that those of us collecting SSDI will be entitled to the COLA annual increase?
Yes.
And can you explain COLA?
Cost of living allowance. I can't believe that I just pulled that out of my brain. I haven't heard that term in a long time. Cost of living allowance. Every calendar year it goes up based on the cost of living. And so yes, you're automatically, if you're receiving benefits, it automatically goes up every year. As a matter of fact, when you're calculating retroactivity in a case, let's say you won your case in 2025, but you were disabled as of 2023, they're going to consider your retroactivity, the amounts for 2023, 24, and up to the decision in 2025. So yes, they do.
Okay, next. If I participate in a clinical trial and get a small payment, do I need to report it to SSDI?
Ask your tax person. I don't know. I think it would be easy to explain it and still not be affected, but I don't know regarding reporting it or not. Sorry.
I would think that it has something to do with the amount that you're actually receiving, because some clinical trial people get $500, $200, where others can get a few $1,000 or several $1,000.
So the thought is this, Stuart, if you are making money because of something you're proactively doing, it's not passive income. If you sold a house based on a phone call or made a stock win gain, that's considered income based on that phone call, based on the sale of the house, or based on, they can consider that income if your actions create the ability for you to receive money.
Okay. So in other words, somebody that's at home and doing nothing, they can't even go online onto TD Waterhouse or whatever it's called, TD Ameritrade, whatever it's called. They can't go on there and play with nickels and dimes and try to make some money. Is that what you're saying? Or are there limits?
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Those all get reportable at the end of the year, so they become a concern. So that's why my advice to anybody who has investments is to just get dividends, because that's very clearly nothing that you know, that's definite passive income. Now, the amounts may change with this administration, but this is the way it's currently. If you made those trades and those trades resulted in money because you lifted the phone, yeah, technically you created it. It's not passive.
But you said that a person could do the stocks and get dividends only and not actually receive cash, and that would not be an issue?
Right, because you didn't proactively have to do anything to receive that dividend.
Okay. Next question. If your parents passed and you're listed as their beneficiary, can this affect your SSI benefits?
If they left you money and you're only collecting SSI, yes, because that means you wouldn't qualify for SSI. So that's where trust comes into play. If you're receiving SSI money and your parents have enough to give you upon their death, really the best course of action is to put that money into a trust. If you can't touch the money and it's special needs trust or it's a trust you cannot touch, you could still collect SSI. But if you have access or the ability to do any of that, then you can't.
Okay. For those that have been stay-at-home moms for their whole life or most of their life, how do they put through a claim for SSDI?
So they're also a stay-at-home dad, so it's not necessarily just the mom. And you put a claim in for SSI because you're not insured for SSDI unless certain things, unless you're a widower, and then you have to make sure that you fall within the constraints of that. So it's, you have to be over 50 and you have to become disabled within 7 years of the death. There are a lot of other things that go into that, but if you're married and you want to collect disability, you're not entitled to it because you didn't pay into the system. You have to prove that you qualify for SSI.
Right. What is considered income?
It's up to the person on the other line of the phone, or it's up to a judge in a hearing. We just touched upon the amounts. We just touched upon active versus passive income. So a lot of things can be considered income. A lot of things can just be money that's given to you. That's different. But if you did something to create that money, it's income.
Okay. So is Social Security disability considered income?
It is considered income for purposes of the fact that when you're collecting Social Security disability, you're still paying taxes and you still qualify. So that's a really technical question. So it is income, but it's not earned income. It's not worked income. I hope that makes sense. It's complicated.
It is complicated. All right. Next, a person writes, I'm currently collecting disability from my employer. However, now they require I apply for disability. It will reduce my work disability if I'm approved, and I'm afraid to get disability because of all the new rules and administration. What are your thoughts on this?
Absolutely apply for disability, because if you're receiving long or short-term disability through your company, somewhere in that agreement that you signed, unless the agreement was over 20 years ago, that agreement makes you apply for Social Security disability so that they can offset what they're giving you. So yes, absolutely apply, or you risk losing your short or long-term benefits also.
Okay.
The offset is always going to be there.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next one is, what is the difference between SSI and SSDI and normal SS benefits?
So normal SS benefits are retirement. SSDI is based on the work you did and the taxes you paid in, and it has no financial constraints. And SSI is that you're disabled, but you are under the poverty line.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, we have Next we have, can we draw down our IRA and 401k accounts while applying for or receiving SSDI?
Yeah, a lot of people unfortunately do that. Yes, of course.
So
But
it is a way. Yep.
remember, you can't do this if you're applying for SSI because you have to be financially indigent. So when you're applying for SSDI, it doesn't matter how much income you have.
Okay. All right. Next one, we have only 2 remaining. How many months does it take to wait? How many months do you have to wait to get Medicare?
Medicare is 29 months after you've been deemed disabled. And that's just a number Congress came up with, and that's the way it is. So if you were disabled, count 29 months later, that's when your Medicare starts.
Okay, thank you. If an attorney says that they only do federal disability retirement, is that separate?
I think so, because I don't know what that is. So somebody asked me if I could do that, I wouldn't know what that means. There are attorneys that handle railroads cases, people that are unionized that didn't really pay FICA, but that's different than what I do. So I would inquire a little bit more about that.
Okay, and that brings us to the last question, which is concerning about somebody that has been in a union and they are receiving their payments still every month now from their pension. How do pension accounts work for or against a person that wants to apply for SSDI?
So again, if it's SSDI, it doesn't affect you. That's a clear example of passive income that you're receiving. And because you're not applying for SSI, which has the financial restraints, SSDI, you can collect. It's fine. It does not affect.
Okay, great. We're out of questions. Yay! We went through them all.
I feel like I had an oral examination.
That's okay. It's supposed to be that way, all right?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to be able to
be that way. Stewart's, these weren't my questions. Usually I make up a lot of questions for our doctors and et cetera, but this was truly everybody else's questions, all right? So I'm glad that they came out of the ballpark when I told them ask those questions, right? And again, Lisa, thank you. And I hope to see you soon, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.